we're back with another episode of Inside Sports Fantasy Football. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you right here from Inside Sports Fantasy Football. The Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, a game source. We truly appreciate everyone out there. Listen to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you could like, share, subscribe today to get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air with an Inside Sports Fantasy Football, the PCC Multiverse, Pop Culture Cosmos, or the State of Pro Wrestling coming up later this week. We're going to have a ton of things to talk about on the State of Pro Wrestling. Not much going on there, is there? Yes, I am being facetious. There is a ton of stuff going on in the world of pro wrestling, and you'll hear it all from us right here if you subscribe today to Pop Culture Cosmos on YouTube and like us on Inside Sports Fantasy Football and follow us on Pop Culture Cosmos as well. Well, everyone, I hope you're doing well. Cool Bro's in the chat. He is 9-3. Maybe you should be hosting this. I'm only 8-4 in my team, but I am in first place in Chris and our I guess paid league per se. I guess the league for money right now. So I just jumped into first place this weekend, even though I committed a mortal sin in fantasy football, and I will talk about that here in a sec. But here today with me, hopefully Chris will join us soon. Good man indeed. He is, of course, one of the great parts of the Lakers Fast Break, and also as well Inside Sports Fantasy Football. It is the madman from Toronto. He did get out of Toronto traffic to go ahead and stop on by right here. The Magic Man, Sean Grice, and also Chris Sardieri from Domination Sports Nation has just arrived as well. Magic Man, I'm going to hit you up first. The theme for today is the standings right now in the NFL in both the Western and, the AFC and the NFC. It is so funny because I got Lakers on the brain, I guess. But AFC and the NFC, it's a tight race all over. And with the week 13 upon us, a lot of teams still are in play. Even if you have a 4-7 record, like several teams that are out there, let's just say you're the Los Angeles Raiders, or if you are, well, they're 5-7. Let's say they're the Los Angeles Chargers or the New York Jets, or maybe even the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hell, even if you are the Washington Commanders at 4-8, you still have a chance to go and make the playoffs this season. So with that being said, or the New York Giants for Chris Sardieri. So with that being said, my friend, how important is it for you to focus in on making sure your starters are from some of these teams vying and competing all the way throughout the rest of the season for a playoff spot?
Well, Gerald, when you were name slotting all those mediocre teams, including my own, and
And Chris's.
yes, but Chris can speak for the Giants for himself. I will not speak to the Giants' horrid season. I have my own problems. That being said, Gerald, the gif of Jim Carrey and God, I'm butchering her name, Gerald. What's her name in Dumb and Dumber?
Oh, as far as Lauren Holly.
Lauren Holly, yeah. So you're
Yeah, the one
saying
who
there's
ended
a
up
chance.
marrying and then divorcing Jim
Forcing
Carrey.
Carrie, yes.
Yes.
So you're saying there's a chance. That's kind of what all those teams are clinging to at this point. All of them, 7, 8 losses. If you're in that range, man, it's slim to no error as far as the rest of the season goes. I mean, it's basically 9-8 is kind of the cutoff for a wild card in either conference. So, man, you're really playing on thin ice there, Gerald. I will say this. It wouldn't shock me at all if one of those teams did kind of maybe make a run here in December. Only one, and it's definitely not going to be the Raiders. Um,
Now, don't say that for sure, my friend. As long as you have that wide receiver set, yeah, they are on a bye this week, but as long as you have that wide receiver set, Anything is possible. Just needs someone to actually be able to throw the ball to them.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Very true. But Gerald, I didn't cop out. I said that I really think that the NFL season starts after Thanksgiving. I will say this: the Buffalo Bills just had their heart ripped out of their chest. Um,
That's what Chris said. I'm going to get Chris in here on that. Chris sent me some smack on that because I called that as one of my well, actually that was my trip to the doghouse. I actually still won,
yeah.
if technically, because they were 3.5 to cover the
Mm-hmm.
spread.
No, that's right. That's right. You were Gerald. So, kudos. Still, though, I mean that was the ultimate. Like, rip your heart out of your chest, stomp on it, and then throw it in the garbage.
Well, they've done that to themselves the entire season, Magic Man.
Oh,
This is a team that had Super Bowl aspirations, and can you? Well, they've had injuries just like every other team, but
they
this
have
is
Gerald, but it's so astounding, right? Their point differential when they win is over I believe 25 points.
yeah.
But they can't win these close games, and I'll let Chris elaborate on that because it just feels that I don't know what the hell happened to Buffalo, Chris.
But also here
I don't
today,
either.
good
No.
man indeed. It is Chris Sardieri from Domination Sports Nation. Go ahead, my friend. I just want to make sure I plug your awesome show one more time, my friend.
Oh yeah, thanks. No, to Sean's point, and apologies, Gerald. I thought the line was 3. I thought that was going to be a
There's
brutal.
3.5. I
Oh,
remember
what do I
they
say?
always
Always
love the
take the half
halves in
point.
Vegas.
Yes,
Chris
they
has always said
dangle that
that
extra.
take the half the
Yep.
point. Yep.
Yes, you need to, and I got the Giants right this week, which is my broken clock is right twice a day moment. But regardless, so the Bills are baffling because I mean, look, we talked about this last week, Sean. Josh Allen is the highest scoring fantasy football player, and he showed why during that game. But yet his sense of timing when it comes to turnovers or even missing a wide open Gabe Davis, I don't know who misread what on that play that would have been inevitably won the game, but they're just always one play away, one turnover away, or like that causes a problem. Let's face it, you want to talk about coaches on the hot seat is Sean McDermott. I mean, they fired Ken Dorsey, made him the scapegoat for the game they lost because they had 12 men on the field during a Denver field goal to end the game. But I know the Bills offense looks improved, but is Dorsey really the reason? This is a guy who, with 13 seconds left in an AFC playoff game 2 years ago, kicked to Tyreek Hill, and the Chiefs end up winning that game. So this has been an ongoing issue. Am I going to pin it all on McDermott? No, but if they don't win this year with that talent, I wouldn't be surprised if they make a change in Buffalo.
So the thing is, when all those teams, like I mentioned right there, if you're a team and you look in the standings right now, and you've got players in anywhere from in the NFC, Seattle, all the way down to Washington, you're playing out the string with guys. If you've guys got guys in there, those guys are going to be left in the lineup. Don't worry about it. They're outside of injury. That's not going to be a problem. And in the AFC, if you're sitting right now with the Pittsburgh Steelers all the way down to the New York Jets, I would be just go ahead. If you've got players that you start there on a regular basis, no problem there. No worries as of yet. I don't see anybody going in tank mode. I see everybody, at least as of now, being okay. Even in the if you have a losing team right now, when it comes to the higher echelon teams, I think there's still for now, you don't have to be concerned. But 2, 3 weeks from now, if they keep on winning, let's say the Dallas Cowboys, an idiot here who doesn't start Dak Prescott, what's our golden rule, Chris? The hot
Play the
guy.
hot hand.
Yes, play the hot hand, you dumb idiot, Gerald. I didn't, and I barely won. And if I would have started him, 45 points right there for you. So, yeah, even though I won in despite myself. So, with that being said, Magic Man, when it comes to what you need to evaluate, if you've got a lot of players on top teams, at what point do you start thinking yourself, some of these guys are going to be taken out of the lineup to go ahead and be saved for the playoffs?
So if you're Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions, you're going for that 1 seed. You want that bye. If the Lions can get that bye, Gerald, I honestly think they can win at least one home game. and get to the NFC Championship. I think Campbell has the talent and has the motivational skills enough to convince them to try and go for it. So if I was anybody who owned any Lions skill player or Goff, do not sit those guys. I think Campbell's going all the way to the end to try and win as many games as possible. With the Eagles, yeah, I think the Eagles are comfortable with just if they have only one
I think
home
they'll sit
game.
down Hurts at some
I
point.
they will,
Yeah.
Gerald. I think they will. Maybe around week 14, week 15. If they've got a 2-game lead on Dallas now, and they've they've still got to play them one more time, right?
They've
After
got to,
Yes.
yeah, they
Yeah.
still have to play one more time, but they have 2-game lead over the 49ers, Lions, and Cowboys.
Yeah, so I think if they still have that 2-game lead, like week 14, week 15, they're gonna sit Hurts. I agree with you. I don't think the 49ers again can afford to sit anybody. Uh, I think if you're the 49ers, you really try and get at least that third seed. You definitely don't want to be a fourth seed, maybe playing the Dallas Cowboys, even at home. The Cowboys look to be the most dangerous wild card team at this point. So there's not a lot of room for error here either, Gerald, in the AFC either. If you're Miami, I think you definitely want that one seed because playing in Miami, potentially in January, might be a little wet, a little muddy, Gerald, and the Dolphins have a really great running attack. So if they could muck up the game, especially against a Kansas City or a Baltimore, more power to them because I think they could win that kind of game. So I think the number one seed is in their eyes. Baltimore, Kansas City, I don't think they're going to rest guys either, Gerald. If Harbaugh rests Lamar Jackson, I think that might be cutting off your nose to spite your face because I think the more reps he gets, especially when the playoffs come around, is going to be really, really important because they have a strong running game that they can use in the playoffs. But again, is Harbaugh gonna try and that old Harbaugh arrogance? It never escapes Jim or John at crucial moments. We'll see about that. But I think the only real team in the AFC that would rest their skill players, if you can call them that, are the Chiefs.
What about you, Chris? Do you have any thoughts, especially for players out there who have struck it rich with some really good teams on Dallas, Detroit, San Francisco, Philadelphia, or in the AFC, Baltimore, Kansas City, Jacksonville, or Miami? Although Tua didn't have a great week, it still didn't lead to a loss by any stretch of the imagination. So let me ask you this: at what point do you start thinking about maybe going ahead and having alternatives because some of these guys may be pulled out of the lineup just to rest for the playoffs?
Think you start now, and I have Hurts in 2 leagues, and we've already encountered that. I kind of counseled you on a one proposed trade a few weeks ago, Gerald, and Dom and I decided to hold on to CJ Stroud because I think that's a team that'll, if not jockeying for position, maybe fighting for a playoff berth. And we saw last year Hurts sat out 2 weeks. I know he was injured, but things were locked up, and why would you risk him? And two of the Eagles' last 3 games are against my beloved New York Giants, and I'll go out on a limb and say I think Marcus Mariota can man the ship against that Giants team. So, Hurts has already been injured this year. I would not be shocked if he gets rested. You look at week 16, week 17 in the NFL, that's your fantasy semifinals and championship game. So you need to start looking now. And then two, I also think with the NFC teams, like Sean mentioned, you want to be a 2 or 3 seed. You want to have that home game, and you'd rather play the weaker wild card teams. Like he said, you'd say what you want about Dallas, but they're going to play someone tough in the playoffs. We know that much. Will they win or not is another story. On the AFC side, I could see Harbaugh resting Lamar and it backfiring on them. So if you're a Lamar owner, you need to be prepared for that too. Mahomes probably not as much. They're going to be fighting for the 1 seed, and he likes to get his reps. He may play an abbreviated game down the stretch, so you might need to prepare for that too. What Dom and I are looking at on a couple of our teams is you've got to look at your running backs. And I think it's time now, people kind of scoff at this nowadays. This is an old school Gerald and Sean. I know you probably did this back in the day. I think you need to start handcuffing running backs. And we did that thankfully with Kenneth Walker. We got Zach Charbonnet. And you may need to start doing that with whoever your starter is. Use that roster spot, stash him as a 14th or 15th player on your bench, because if a starting running back gets hurt and they're headed into the playoffs, whoever's next in line is going to start getting touches in that case.
I will tell you though, I am very just stunned what Magic was talking about with the Buffalo Bills earlier, because you look at their point differential as a 6-6 team, they have the second best point differential in the AFC and the fourth best overall. They have outscored their opponents by over 100 points, yet they're 6-6. I think that tells it all.
Oh my gosh, Gerald. And last year with the contrast with the Minnesota Vikings, who seemed to win every one-score game they played in, but yet got dusted. And we saw what happened when Daniel Jones got a hold of them in in that game. So, I mean, it's just a contrast in styles, Gerald. It just goes to show. I mean, the NFL, not for long. I mean, I know that's an old Jerry Glanville quote, but it's so true. It's you could have a great point differential, be 6-6, and have a bad point differential, be 12-4, and you're still the same team.
They've had 3 heartbreaking losses. Jets the first week, the Denver Monday night game, and then this past week against the Eagles. I mean, you could say, what if they could have won? I mean, even if they win 1 or 2 of those games, we're not talking about this right now. So for me, it's like, do those soul-crushing defeats affect the team, or do they bounce back? They got a rough stretch here. We'll see what they're made of.
Once again, it is Inside Sports Fantasy Football. It is the Magic Man Sean Grice of Lakers Fast Break and Chris Sardieri from the Domination Sports Nation. Go ahead and give us a shout out. ISFF right there for you. Inside Sports Fantasy Football right there. ISFantasyFootball at yahoo.com or Inside Sports FF on Twitter. Guys, been a great time talking to you both about the fact that there's so much chaos going on in the NFL, just the way they like it. So many teams still yet to decide whether or not they're going to tank for the top of the draft, or they're going to go ahead and vie for a playoff spot. But before we head on out, who are the best games in fantasy football to take a look at this weekend before we go to the woof, 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 go to the doghouse? Sean, what pick do you have for a game that fantasy football owners need to go ahead and take a look at?
Gerald, that divisional matchup with the Jaguars and Texans looks really juicy. Late in the season, they always play each other tough, no matter what their records are. It always seems that unless
the Texans and the Broncos?
I thought it was the Jags this week.
Oh, no, the Jags and the Bengals.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at last week's. Yes. Pardon me.
Yes. Yeah, no worries. All good.
Yeah, I would be looking at that game.
Okay.
Has a lot of potential, even though it could be a 13-10 game drill, but I'm just thinking even with the injuries,
get your kickers ready.
Yeah. I'm thinking, my gut tells me something like 28-27 with a field goal at the end.
All right. Good call. Good call indeed. Chris, who do you got for a game that fantasy football owners need to check out this weekend?
I mean, fantasy fans and NFL fans will definitely keep their eye on that Eagles 49ers game. I think both teams offensively are clicking. I know they have excellent defenses, but something tells me this could be another repeat of what we saw with the Eagles against Buffalo. And, they're just going to be throwing haymakers at each other offensively. Will they light the scoreboard up? I don't know, but I don't expect it to be as ugly as last year's NFC Championship. And then kind of a dark horse. The Jacksonville Jaguars, as Sean just referred to, is a team that I think if the chips fall and let's say Baltimore slides or Kansas City loses another one, they've got some tough games coming up. The Jags could be in play for at least a 2 seed, potentially a 1. And I like the way they played against the Texans last week. I know Trevor Lawrence has struggled, but I mean, Calvin Ridley came to life. Travis Etienne's had a nice year. Evan Engram, at times if you need a tight end, has shown some more signs of life. So this is a team too going in against a, let's face it, decimated and probably discouraged Bengals team next Monday night. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jacksonville kind of light it up and make a statement on Monday Night Football.
Before we head on out, it's
Oh,
always
yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Gerald. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
Go ahead.
always. No, please go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
my friend, because it's woof woof woof. We're getting to the doghouse
Yes.
next.
Yes.
Don't hit the
Go
paper with
ahead.
the dog,
No.
or don't hit the dog with the paper.
And that's a tail wagging the dog in that case, right?
There you go. Some people actually throw dogs at the paper boy as he drives on by. But my friend, do you have anything to go ahead and talk about, Magic Man? Before
No. I thought I had something to add, but I don't. So
Oh, no worries, man. But you'll be adding something here because we're taking a trip out on the front lawn. We're watching the paper boy throw the paper at the dogs. The dogs being thrown at the paper. And as you're walking by, you take a look and woof woof woof, you head on over to the doghouse. So, Magic Man, for NFL Week 13, who you got as your dog of the week?
Oh man, Joe's gonna hate me for this. He's really, really gonna hate me. The Arizona Cardinals.
Ooh, okay.
I actually think James Conner's gonna run a train over them, Gerald.
Taking the
Something
5.5.
tells me- Yeah,
Taking the 5.5.
I don't know why, but it just seems that they're going to take them lightly, and they're going to end up in that game in the fourth quarter. And something tells me James Conner's going to have a big day against his former team because he's going to be up for it.
Chris, who do you got, my friend, as your dog of the week?
Well, last week, keeping with one of my favorite themes and looking at that 3.5 points, the Giants were home dogs. I contend even if the Patriots made that field goal at the end, the game probably would have ended in a tie or been decided by a field goal. So, always need that half-point insurance, as Gerald learned last week. But I see another one out there. It's the surprising Denver Broncos, the team that everyone wrote off after Tua put up a 70 spot against Denver in week 2. The Broncos are going to sell. Sean Payton was going to release Russell Wilson. And now look, they're in the thick of things in the AFC. They go into Houston. I like Houston. I like CJ Stroud a lot.
I
But
think they're hosting.
they seem to be sputtering at times, but I see Denver getting that extra half a point at 3.5. I could see this being a tightly contested game. Get that insurance. If it by chance the Texans kicker makes a field goal at the end of the game, at least you've got that half-point cushion. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos win outright with the way this team's playing right now.
Well, they're at home. They're at Mile High, so yeah.
Oh, they are? All right. Even better.
I don't know the young
Chris,
man's
yeah.
I don't know the young man's name, Gerald, but he must have had the worst night of his life after he watched Jake Elliott kick that 58-yarder in the rain, in the wind, and man, like that was perfect conditions as well, Gerald.
I'm
Off
checking
the
it out now.
crossbar.
No, you're right. It's Broncos and Texans.
Yeah, it is in
Vegas has
Houston.
Vegas has it listed weird. I don't know why they have it listed as that just absolutely is weird. So,
Yeah,
What's the
Vegas
over-under
Insider has a
on it?
tendency to do that. I don't know why, but it definitely is in Houston. But I'll take it. I'll
it's in
take it.
Houston. There you
What's
go.
the OU on it?
The over-under on it is 47.5, just to let you know.
Oh, I'd take the over with that.
Mine is going to be very simple. I've got the Cowboys and the Seahawks at this point in time. Seahawks going there as a 9-point underdog. I was thinking possibly I'd lean Jaguars and Bengals with the Bengals 7.5 underdogs, but I'm just going to go with Seahawks and Cowboys 9. As far as the spread on that, I think it'll be a little bit closer than that. So I'm picking the Seahawks to go ahead, not to win the game outright, but to go ahead and make it a little bit closer than 9 points. We'll see. I like a shootout. I would like a shootout with Dak Prescott as my starter. That would be good indeed. Once again, it is Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Please join us anytime you can. Or if you have any trades, you have any waiver wire pickups, you have any lineup changes that you want to go ahead and make, but you need advice on, isfantasyfootball@yahoo.com or Inside Sports FF on Twitter. Magic Man Sean Grice, please go ahead and check him out at the Lakers Fast Break. Chris Lardieri, along with his awesome son, Dominic Lardieri, who I was just asked to go ahead and put them back on the Lakers Fast Break sometime whenever they have a chance. Please go ahead and check them out again at the Domination Sports Nation. So for
be happy
Chris,
to be back on, Gerald. Thank you. That's great news.
I-
Dom will like that.
I told you the red carpet's always open for you. Absolutely.
Good to hear.
Tell you what, though, my friends, always great to have you here talking football. Looking forward to a great weekend of football. We wish you the best of luck. Can I actually stay in first place in fantasy football? We'll find out. But Magic Man, any last thoughts before we head on out?
Yes, Gerald. Just wanted to finish up. I just wanted to get your and Chris's thoughts on the championship week now in college football and get some predictions from the panel. So Oregon and Washington Friday night, Gerald, for the championship in your
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah, every time you drive by it on the freeway, you see it plastered on the marquee there for the stadium.
So who do you like in the rematch, Gerald?
I'm going with Oregon.
You're going with Bo Nix?
Yeah, I'm going with Bo Nix on that over Michael Penix. But I'm still thinking all the way Georgia. But the bowl system, they've got to revamp that into the playoff scenario I talked about before. But, that's another story altogether. Chris, who do you got, my friend, coming up for as far as the playoffs are concerned?
Got Oregon. The day that dumb coach botched that first game up in Seattle and Washington won, I told Dom, I'm like, I will not be surprised if there's a rematch and Oregon will win. Now, I hope that coach stays out of his way and lets Bo Nix play and lets his kicker kick when he's supposed to. So I think Oregon's going to win. I also think Georgia will beat Alabama. Bama's overrated. They had a miracle against a cruddy Auburn team, and I don't care how great it was, it pulled it off. And Alabama thinks they have some momentum. I think this Georgia team could probably win the NFC South, and I think they put the smackdown on Alabama. I think the big question will be, if Oregon wins, do they leapfrog Florida State? Hard to say, but this whole system's a mess. It should have never been four teams. It should have been six. And if you don't believe me, why are we going from 4 teams to 12? Usually we go 4 to 8 and it's 6 to 12. So I will not miss this system. I think it's good there'll be 12 teams, but unfortunately they're going to be at least 1 or 2 well-deserving teams. I'll be on the outside looking in Sunday morning.
It needs to be 28, 48, or 64. Utilizing these crappy bowls is something better than just what they're doing now. Playoff system.
Absolutely, Gerald. Yes.
Make $1 trillion.
Without Jordan Travis, you want to put Florida State in the Myrtle Beach Bowl or the Frito-Lay Bowl.
That's an opening round game.
That offense would look pretty good in that game, Gerald. World-class defense, but if you put that offense against any of the teams, Michigan, Washington, Alabama, Georgia, that's going to be like a 30 to 40 point semifinal game again, and nobody wants to see this crap anymore. Nobody wants to see a third seed that went 12-1, won their championship game, but they have a really bad offense or an iffy defense. It's just going to look bad.
Joe Soro is here.
Exactly. Luke Fickell, man.
Yep.
You had it made, buddy.
Joe Soro's here, gets the last word with us. What are your thoughts on the college football, playoffs, as they say, before we head on out?
Well, I know Florida State's not going to last too long here. Washington's going to have a valiant. They've played well. Let's just put it that way. But the reality is, I'm waiting on Georgia, Alabama, and then we're going to find out who's going to be scarier in the playoffs. If Alabama wins this week, I'd be scared to death if I'm Michigan. There's one team that I don't want to see. I don't care how bad Alabama played last week. I know they should have lost, but that's
because Joe's right. That would vault Michigan into the 1 seed, and it would likely make the SEC champion Alabama the 4th seed.
Look, man,
that would be a nightmare. That would be a nightmare for Jim Harbaugh.
I might be wrong. I know that, again, they haven't played well to Alabama standards, but I don't want to see Alabama in the playoffs from Michigan. I believe Michigan can beat anyone after how they pretty much handled, in my opinion. I know the score was close, but I felt like they controlled the running game. They obviously have won the last 3 games against Ohio State, and the theme in those games are the ability to run the ball and they've been pretty dominant there against Ohio State. If
Ger-
Alabama,
And Gerald, there are three new guarantees in life: death, taxes, and you could lose to Michigan 3 years in a row and still keep your job in Ohio.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, it's going to be very interesting to see how the college football playoffs shape up this weekend, and also the NFL Week 13 shapes up this weekend. But we'll be back next week. Hopefully, Joe can come on, a little bit earlier, because we love to hear his thoughts on fantasy football as well as the NFL, and we'll do so hopefully next week.
I won
Hopefully
all three of my leagues, so
I'm in first place, and Chris is for now. We'll see.
Yeah,
And the
how'd
key
you
words
get there,
are for
Gerald?
now.
How'd you get there? I'll tell.
Gerald?
I'm
That's
gonna
right.
real quick before we
Blind
call
luck.
it an evening.
Blind luck.
I'll tell you what blind luck is. A horrible Monday night football game, and I'm watching it, half paying attention, and I realize DJ Moore just caught a pass after yet another turnover by the Vikings, and they're in field goal range. And I get the alert on my phone that we finally pulled one off. That, my favorite stat in the entire world, and ESPN loves this. What's your win probability? Well, late Sunday night, we were sitting somewhere around 14%, and we pulled this game off. We beat up the first place team, and Gerald catapults back in the first. So there you
And
go.
I told you I
Early
won
Christmas
despite
present.
myself, because I started Tua instead of Dak, and I almost
You
paid
said
the
it.
price.
But anyway, yeah, that's the beauty of fantasy football. When DJ Moore catches, it's a nice catch to put him in field goal range, and the fortunes of fantasy football owners everywhere in our league change.
Well, I will wish everyone out there a great and happy fantasy football weekend, a great NFL Week 13 upon us, and also the college football playoffs. Going to be exciting football being played this weekend, and hopefully you'll catch it. And also listen to our reports next week on what you need to do for your fantasy football team right here at Inside Sports Fantasy Football.